Hi, and welcome to yet another APUS History Project. Today, I'm going to be talking about John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and other wealthy industrialists to determine whether they were robber barons or captains of industry. Also, with my vast knowledge on this topic, we will determine whether they were philanthropic or unscrupulous. We'll also be talking about the federal government and the politics of the Gilded Age. Fun. So the first industrialist that I'm going to be talking about today is John D. Rockefeller. As you probably know, John D. Rockefeller was an immensely wealthy man who had a massive influence during the early 1900s. But he was so much more than that. In 1870, he founded the corporation known as the Standard Oil Company, which was located in Cleveland, Ohio. John D. Rockefeller was a captain of industry because he made the founding of the University of Chicago possible and created Rockefeller University, both of which gave job opportunities to professors and provided students access to a formal education. In 1889, John D. Rockefeller originally donated $600,000 to start the University of Chicago, but by the end of his life, he had donated a total of $35 million to the institution. Not only did John D. Rockefeller contribute enormously to the University of Chicago by providing professors with careers and students with access to education, but he also created a university of his own called, you guessed it, Rockefeller University. He's so creative. Rockefeller University was founded in 1901 and contained Rockefeller Institute, the first biomedical research center in the United States. Rockefeller Institute was significant because it provided professors with careers and gave students the opportunity and resources that they needed to study medicine. Because of the Biomedical Research Center, there were several findings made regarding diseases and other illnesses. Examples of the findings from Rockefeller Institute are Simon Flexner's novel delivery system, which was used for an anti-meningitis serum, Louise Pierce's development of a drug to combat African sleeping sickness, and Peyton Roos's conclusion that cancer was and is a virus. Not only was John D. Rockefeller a captain of industry, but he was also a philanthropist. In 1902, Rockefeller founded the General Education Board, which strove to better rural education for both Caucasians and African Americans. By developing this organization, he helped to create hundreds of public high schools in the South and advocated for higher-level education systems. Over the span of John D. Rockefeller's life, he donated over $500 million to charitable causes and is still a prevalent figure in our society today. Andrew Carnegie, like John D. Rockefeller, was enormously wealthy. He was the co-owner of Carnegie Steel Company, located in Pittsburgh, which is where he obtained most of his fortune. Andrew Carnegie, at least in his later years, could be considered a captain of industry because he donated $1.1 million that was needed for the land and construction expenses of Carnegie Hall, a concert hall that was opened in 1891. Carnegie Hall was and is significant because it gave and still continues to give musicians the opportunity to gain recognition through music. In 1904, Carnegie also opened Carnegie Mellon University, formerly known as Carnegie Institute of Technology in Pittsburgh, which gave professors jobs and students access to education. Towards the end of his life, he entirely devoted his life to philanthropy and even wrote an essay called The Gospel of Wealth, which stated that the wealthy have a moral obligation to distribute their money in ways that promote the welfare and happiness of the common man. This dude's legit! Over the span of Andrew Carnegie's life, he gave away $350 million, funded over 2,500 public libraries, and gave away more than 7,600 organs to churches all around the world. Because everybody knows that when donating to charity, organs for churches are always your top priority. Henry Ford was a captain of industry because he founded Ford Motor Company, which completely revolutionized America. During the time of the Gilded Age, he drove down costs for cars, so more citizens, specifically middle-class Americans, could afford them. Before Henry Ford, cars were more readily available to the rich, but by creating cars for more affordable prices, This increased urbanization because the middle-class Americans were now able to travel longer distances for their jobs or for other purposes. Unlike some of the other wealthy industrialists, Henry Ford also gave his workers a real living wage, which meant that the money that he gave to his workers was enough to meet their basic needs. Not only was Henry Ford a captain of industry, but he was also a philanthropist because he was known for performing random acts of kindness by giving away money, food, and automobiles to people who needed them. Also, over the span of Henry Ford's life, he gave away about a third of his earnings. Jay Gould was a businessman who was known for a variety of things. His manipulation tactics, speculating, bribing, and most importantly for increasing the price of gold to increase his own personal wealth. In 1869, Jay Gould bought a lot of gold on a pure capitalist market. However, he miscalculated when the federal government sold its gold. When the United States Treasury noticed that Gould had misused the governmental system, they too sold their gold, so that the price of it would decrease dramatically. So essentially, Jay Gould attempted to corner the gold market so that he could make more money. Unfortunately for Jay Gould, the United States Treasury found out and his entire plan was for nothing. You're a captain of industry and a philanthropist. You're a captain of industry and a philanthropist. Everybody's a captain of industry and a philanthropist. Well, except for you. An interview with Jay Gould. Hello, Jay Gould. My name is Jay Gould, thank you. Did you indeed corner the gold market? Yeah, I did kind of corner the gold market in an attempt to increase inflation and the price of gold in America. My plan was also to sell the gold to make a lot of profit because of the inflation that I tried to create. Didn't you also not pay your workers very well? Yeah, when I worked for the Union Pacific Railroad, I decreased the wages of my Chinese laborers in my mines down to $27 a month. The pay that you provided to your workers was unlivable. Have you at least done something good for our country? Nope, not really. So you're unscrupulous? I guess so. And that concludes our interview with Jay Gould. Gould. Now we're gonna talk about politics. The politics of the federal government during the Gilded Age promoted industrial development and market capitalism because of the government-funded railroad companies and also the protective tariffs. During the time of the Gilded Age, transportation using railroads was incredibly prevalent since people and goods were able to travel more cheaply and quickly. Since the idea of westward expansion, manifest destiny, was still widespread, the building of the Transcontinental Railroad was important because it would connect the Union Pacific Railroad located in Omaha, Nebraska to the Central Pacific Railroad in Sacramento, California, with the railroads joined in Promontory, Utah. Now I'm sure that you guys are all asking yourselves, what does the government have to do with all this? Well, let me tell you. The government helped fund the railroad companies who were willing to take on the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. The government gave the railroad companies anywhere from $16,000 to $48,000 for each mile of track laid. Not only did the government fund the companies who were willing to build the Transcontinental Railroad, but they also offered them copious amounts of land. For every mile of track that was laid by the Central and Union Pacific Railroads, they would receive 640 acres of public land, which when you think about it is pretty significant. With the help of immigrant workers, the Transcontinental Railroad was built in 6 years, giving Americans several new opportunities since it greatly cut down the amount of time that it took to travel from Nebraska to California. Before the railroad, it took a little under 6 months and $1,000 to travel between California and New York. But after the railroad was completed, it took 1 week and $150 to travel between the same two states. All in all, the government promoted industrial development and market capitalism because they funded the Transcontinental Railroad, which allowed people to settle in the West, opened up markets for Eastern producers, enabled people and goods to travel faster, and advanced both national and international trade. During the Gilded Age, the government established high tariffs to protect domestic manufacturers from foreign manufacturers. As an example, the average tariff on imports during the 1880s was approximately 30%, and that yielded about a 15% subsidy on domestic import competing producers. The tariff redistributed approximately 9% of GDP among various affected groups. And that's about all I got. Bye. I don't know how to end this video, so I'll just end with a picture of me as John D. Rockefeller. Oh yeah, and then also, thanks for watching.